Do we need that then?
Yeah.
I think
Sandra,
do.
I shared my teaks with you in Google.
The thing.
Oh, you want this? Okay. Watch out.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Is in the...
Yeah, because we're gonna work on, I think, for sure, writing our content and language objectives.
Yes.
For the teaks coming up in the units.
So I shared the whole form with you, so that way you can just pull it up.
I'm proud of you.
I know, learning.
Mary, I was in the middle of sending you an email, so I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me.
Misty
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay, there it is. Yeah. Because I'm gonna look at these today. I told
RDAs are over. I just emailed you that now, though, just to let you know.
I think
I know, but I just want to make sure
Half
that
the day.
those weeks we're not double that. Compose.
So I just sent you that. Just wait till you
That was my next thing to have on the list.
planning groups.
3.3D and 3.3.
So we got a lot done yesterday.
Set.
Math got more done than meeting, as per usual.
No.
Yes.
Compose and decompose. Okay.
I'm just kidding. So we'll start with reading but I thought since this is our first time where most of us are departmentalized, we could really work on, why isn't it showing up there?
Patricia, what did you do? Turn to pink.
Is here.
It's blinking here. Maybe I need to, no, because it has that. There was something Tanya did.
Is it in your
Settings?
sharing preferences or not sharing preferences, but
System preferences.
no, yeah, and display
Uh-huh.
and then mirror should be there. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Airplay display.
Go ahead. But you see how it says color right there?
No, it just goes to display. Is it on display?
No.
Okay, click on display at the top.
I have it there.
It's right there.
Hit color maybe.
I'm gonna be doing this.
Okay,
Pick
hit
one of
color.
those kids.
We're not going over. Those will be the ones.
Is that what's showing on your desktop?
Yeah, no, I have that box open and it wasn't showing what I was doing.
Oh,
By creating.
by creating.
Here it is.
There it is.
By creating, by adding,
What was it, Sandra?
creating and adding.
What was it under?
It was the mirror. I think
Okay.
it was under arrangement.
Okay.
I just clicked it and it worked. So I don't know.
Well, we are gonna be doing that fractions of that. Okay, we use unit 17.
Yeah, so we really planned out the week. But we are only using these two teaks. We decided 3.8A and 3.5A as our main teaks. And then the context, antonyms and synonyms, and making inferences, those are kind of those things that we're just kind of every time we're reading, we're talking about those things. So, but we need to think about in the next couple weeks doing something more explicit with them. But for this first week, we just kind of left it. So we have character interactions coming up for the following week. Character
I
interactions.
think we should do character interactions week 2.
That's
along
what we
with
have it at right now.
Okay, yeah.
And
Along
using the
with context
folktale
clues.
Nacho and Lolita, that'll be really good for character. So let's maybe go ahead and come up with our objective. So, and what I was thinking is going forward, like, we basically just need to have an objective for each teak. And then when we do that teak, then we have the language and content objective ready. And I think most times we'll be able to combine them, but then if they get too wordy and too much, then we just have them separate. So, we're going to write this one for the, this teak. Let's see the highlighting option.
I don't think there is one in Google. I tried to find that before.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is?
If you click on the A, right there. Sorry, never mind. Like on the letter A underneath, go to highlight.
Belinda, you just keep on.
I'm full of surprises this
Oh,
new year,
so
okay?
cute.
She must be in college.
Must be.
You do the character one?
Yeah, so this is 3.8b. Describe the interaction of characters, including their relationships and the changes they undergo. So, of course, I can.
Describe.
Should we change it to how characters interact,
Yeah.
or just keep it the interaction?
How characters interact and change.
Hot characters,
Alright.
Ooh, don't judge me.
By.
Over time, or?
So,
Change over time.
Yeah. Change over
Change
time.
over
would be good.
time. Yeah. I agree.
I don't know, I almost want to say throughout a story
Yeah.
instead of over time.
Over
It's
time.
technically over time.
It is
how
over
it's-
time.
Okay. I can describe how characters interact and change over time
I think it's because I was thinking of that question, future, how, if you think
by,
about how future events.
because we want them to track it in a graphic organizer.
Recording my thinking in a graphic organizer. By recording my thinking in a graphic organizer.
Is it my thinking or text evidence?
I like text evidence.
Text evidence.
Because then we're because whatever they jot down, we want them to actually get it from the story. So change over time by recording text evidence on a graphic organizer.
By recording my inferences using text evidence. What do you think? This is using text.
And then what type of graphic organizer? Do we want to specify or leave it graphic
Just leave it
organizer?
graphic
And
organizer.
then if you're using a T-chart or you're using whatever
I
you're
would
using,
leave
then
it,
throw
yeah.
that in.
Just graphic, Describe how characters interact and change over time by recording my inferences using text evidence on a graphic organizer. It's a bit of a run-on sentence.
It
but
really is.
That's what I
It's a
thought.
bit wordy, verbose. Describe how characters interact and change over time.
Maybe
Time?
we don't need the overtime.
What, can't we say, over time period, I will record,
Yes.
I will record I will record my inferences using text evidence on a graphic organizer. I think that would be,
Are you inferring for if you're describing?
See, that was where I was kind of stuck because everything's not going to be an inference.
Because there's
I feel like it could almost be observation.
Because there's just separate inferences, isn't
Go back to the team then.
Well, and it, like the questions on the star were which sentence best describes their relationship, which sentence best shows that Judy is upset. Jenny described that she shouldn't argue with Beth because. Why does Jenny start drawing it in her notebook when Miss Pike says that she is new for the class?
Your why because would be an inference question, but the rest were all like direct. So I feel like observations
Sounds
are
okay,
going
yeah.
to
Yeah, I
because
agree.
they will need to infer slightly probably when it comes to character relationships, but it's not all inference. Some of it is just direct.
Absolutely.
So I'll
That's
record my
fine.
observations
Which that encompasses a lot of things.
using text evidence on a graphic organizer.
I'm good with that. The next one is context clues.
No, go ahead.
The first take that you guys had on 3.4B,
Uh-huh.
just FYI, in the past 3 years, there's been 5 questions on that take.
Well, it's context clues.
Yeah.
So,
With,
oh, including the.
yeah.
Okay, so
So-
that specific teak is context clues with homographs.
And so there,
And multiple
in the
meaning
past 3
words.
years, there's been 5 questions asked on that.
Each year or
each
total?
year. each year
Okay.
on
Wow.
that specific teak.
Yeah, and see, that's one of those that's like spiraling through. We're always,
We've taught it like how many times so far? Quite a few times.
I think it's spiraled in twice as a direct, but like a direct
And
teach.
it's been on every district assessment with at least.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like
questions
our, it's one of our probably lower performing teams
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Because it's one of the
It's
hardest
been.
skills.
And some of the questions will be, it'll say, read the dictionary entry for this word, what is the meaning?
Oh,
Yeah.
dictionaries. We've done a count of how many we have. We'd like to have them one-to-one, like where each kid has one that they can use. Right now, once they're dispersed with departmentalized and stuff, I think it comes out to like two kids to one dictionary. So we would like to be able to, for each kid to have their own just to get that practice. But I just thought about that. I've been meaning to tell you. I'm going to put the teak here.
I think so. I think I have some.
Do you want to write an objective for 3.4B?
Yeah, let's do it. Here, the way I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna put a collection actually of them. As we write objectives, I'm gonna do a new Google Doc in the planning folder so that we can kind of have a pool and we'll have them in order there. And then next year, we should be able to just go to them. So then we'll do 3.4B objective. So this specific teak is multiple meaning words and homographs.
And that critique is being asked in multiple ways as well. That's another.
Because that's where the dictionary meaning comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It could be to look at dictionary meanings and determine which one was the right meaning.
Synonyms, antonyms as well.
Well, see, antonyms and synonyms are a separate teak. It's 3.4C, so it's still under the 3.4 umbrella, but it's, so I don't know.
But that's part of what we're doing. I mean, so basically our focus is on context clues as a whole. So I would write one objective for both these teaks because, I mean, honestly, we're going to be addressing both together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's basically either saying, look at the dictionary or look at this word in the text and what does it mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's not the same as synonyms and antonyms. It's really not.
No, it
3.4B is quite a bit different than using synonyms and antonyms to determine meaning.
True, but we've already covered those, so when we revisit, we're just gonna talk about context and the kids have to figure out what they're gonna use. Does that make sense?
The only thing is that there's the 3.4B, it's either gonna be a dictionary definition or a homograph. The other types of context clues like synonyms, antonyms, description, those are what they have to apply just as good readers in general. But this specific 3.4B is using dictionary meanings and homographs. So I feel like we should keep like a separation between reading skills in general, context clue skills, but then there's also the specific determining multiple meanings.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So we'll split up the,
Read the
have two different
questions today.
objectives for,
Read the questions to me.
And that team is also in week 3, so should we, are we gonna be focusing on both teams from week 2, or?
Well, we need to decide, but I feel like we should.
Okay, just FYI, 3.4C, not
Yeah.
to say that's not important. There, over the past 3 years, there's only been one question asked on that. And basically says which word is a synonym for this word, or which of these is a synonym for this word used in a sentence.
Right, and see, that's where us teaching that teak is just to improve their reading ability overall. You know what I mean? It's so that they're better readers overall. But 3.4B is kind of its own monster when it comes to context clues.
It's all your vocabulary.
there's a lot.
So,
This is something though we need to be touching on every single day. It's not just,
well, and that's where having like in a station, like a dictionary skills
Yeah,
station,
absolutely.
where they're
Absolutely.
practicing that. Well, and we need to look into activities that just deal with homographs as a station too. Something that they're just practicing.
and in guided reading, the kids don't get a word. We'll be looking to examine the clues and just try to figure it out. It should be just part of being a good reader.
There's one that, the dictionary.
If we're gonna write another objective though, I think it needs to have to do with
3.8, 4B, right?
3.5B.
5. Oh, paraphrasing, oh my
Because
goodness,
these are
yeah.
still myths and.
Well, we already wrote this one, it's the
3.5
same,
B.
we wrote that one together. B. Oh, settings, sorry.
Just because it has to do with
Mhm.
the,
Upset, yeah.
I don't know, what do y'all think? When are we gonna compare the settings?
That's my question.
We
because
also
there's
have
six
it-
weeks
Let's do
for
that
1 week.
on week
Well,
3.
That's where, and that's what we were kind of talking about yesterday too. So making inferences, you're just doing that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have so many teaks in ELAR.
Mhm.
That when you're making inferences,
Smart.
when you're doing your mini lesson, when you're reading out loud with the kids, you're making you're kind of trying to make sure to hit on it. When they're reading their independent reading time, they maybe have a graphic organizer where they're practicing making inferences. You know, the text evidence plus the inference, or what is it? Schema. Text evidence plus schema equals inference. So they're here, but it doesn't mean you're going to have a mini lesson for each one of them. Because we've explicitly taught already 3.4B has already been specifically taught, explicitly taught. 3.4C has already been explicitly taught. 19D has been explicitly taught. Really 3.8B has been explicitly taught, but that's kind of like our second. Because the way I see it, 3.5B, this is our unit teak.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
is our unit teak for the week.
5A and 5B.
3.8B is a unit teak, but it's one that we will have taught this week, and it's one that we will continue teaching in week 3 because we're going to constantly talk about sequencing and summarizing the fables that we're reading.
And that's a good one.
I think
Paraphrasing the themes, that's kind of an underline for week 2 because we will have done it, but it's still something that's going to be happening. And then 3.5B. So really, it's these 3
Okay.
teaks here.
So the mini lessons are going to be focused on those three.
I
these
think
three.
I think if we in 3.8B, right? Yeah, 3.8B. So if we focus on 3.8B, wait a minute, I'm confused. There's 2 different 3.8Bs.
One is
It's probably just
rating is-
labeled wrong.
Oh,
I think
Interaction
in the
of
top one,
characters.
character interaction.
Including the relationships and the changes
Oh,
they
that's so
undergo.
many. That's another one. That's a 4th one that really should be a focus. But this unit is kind of like that because there's,
Yeah, I think character interactions.
or the genre, the terms.
I mean, we're going to continue looking at theme because we started it this week. The kids really need to understand it. It's important. So we continue with theme next week. Plus, we're going to look at the characters. I mean, really, character changed. A lot of it, we can look at it in the context of how that, you know, how the, like basically the boy who cried wolf, how did he change? The theme is blah, 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 and therefore he learned a lesson. His change is from the beginning to the end. The theme will
Well, yeah,
actually lend itself to that teak.
well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that we need to think about guided reading and how we're doing this in our guided reading. Because in a 10-15 minute mini lesson, we're not going to be teaching 4 teaks well.
No.
Explicitly teaching them well. So we need to think about how we're using that also in guided reading. And because especially the interaction of characters, because every book, any fiction story has characters, whether they're animals or humans.
This goes really hand in hand with the theme, because the characters, I mean, the interaction, the theme basically you learn the lesson through the character interactions, and the character change happens because of a theme.
Right, but instead of feeling like we have to do it all in our 10-minute mini lesson, we need to just think about when we're planning our guided reading also, so it doesn't feel like so heavy. So in your guided reading plans, make sure that you're doing these 2, which obviously one of them has the wrong number on it. I'm going to find out which one. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter right now. These 2 standards. Week 3, we don't have any new ones being added here.
I think comparing and contrasting the settings and myths and traditional folk tales, I would move that to week 3.
Okay.
And we'll still revisit the theme, still, you know, but our main focus will be comparing so that's just looking at that one teak and revisiting all the others.
Okay, so for week 2, we're really going to focus on character interaction and continue focusing on finding the theme and sequencing and summarizing.
How
main
about
events.
context clues? Where's that gonna fall? Where are we gonna?
I thought it was in
Inspiring.
station.
In stations, okay.
What
that's
if we
good.
divide the teaks, like week 1, week 2, we focus on like 1 or 2 teaks?
But there's
And
only
then-
one more week, and there's
And then
like
the third week, we
16.
focus on the other, you know how we had said that there are 3 teaks that we need to focus on? For like the mini lessons? For
Yes.
example, 3.8B, that could be week 2, we can focus the whole week on that one.
Yes,
and then
that's what we
spiral the
were
rest,
saying.
Yeah.
And then week 3, we'll focus on,
The setting. Yes,
Right.
that's pretty much how
Yeah.
it's broken down.
Yeah. And the character one, we're gonna really, that's gonna be our main focus, but we're going to look at it through the context of theme. Like, how is theme actually affecting, how is it all playing out, you know? Like the boy cried wolf, he started, you know, he was being silly, he was, people, you know, he was calling the people, help, help, and they were running to him, and then at the end, he discovered that, you know, lying does not pay off or whatever, so it shows how he changed, but it also shows the theme, and it goes, kind of goes hand in hand. So yeah, those 2 teaks will support each other nicely.
I'm going to change the colors, but
But yeah, you're right, the context is something that, yeah, through stations or just, independent practice.
but it is. And that's the difference between ELAR and math.
Yeah.
These standards are
When you,
heavy.
Ms.
They are.
Wiseman, when you put in something in the center, is because you already
Taught it.
did the,
We've taught it, it's
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
and also honestly.
Yeah, we spent a whole week on context clues, and dictionary skills were part of that. And then after we did that, we all kind of
right,
We
put
did
it
it
into our
twice.
station.
We actually did it, we actually explicitly taught it 2 times. I mean, they were in the plans twice.
When we started the
so
year.
they have this.
Yeah. So,
I'm over reading. Writing. Well, waiting for something embarrassing to pop up here.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, no, there won't be. I didn't really use my computer over the break. That's not embarrassing, that's for school. Not pleasure. The pig and the cookie. Alright, so I think that we definitely need to decide how we're gonna teach those standards.
Are
Do you have
we
any
talking about the
questions?
writing or the reading?
Well, I was gonna go back to reading just to make sure we're
yeah,
all,
yeah, we're good.
okay.
We're good.
I was thinking writing, but let's do math first and then,
You know.
so you just shared that with me, right, Belinda?
Yes. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll refine it. We'll refine that one. There it is.
Vanessa, we had talked about how, I asked Misty Young, because I just kind of chunk them together, and she gave us that pacing guide, that email for week by week, and what we wanted to change is, we're starting this week with 3.3A, which is really kind of identifying the fractions, and we're doing vocab and fraction strips this week. Then the following week, it has it doing number lines, but we thought we would go to unit fractions, because that sounds like it goes together, like
Let me put it
a unit fraction, and then do number lines, because it seems like we're introducing, there's different ways. There's the number lines, there's the parts of a whole. So we thought we would do 3.3A and 3.3C, which 3.3C is they're expected to explain that a unit fraction,
So it's going from parts of a whole and the unit fraction. We're going from the end of this week into the beginning of next week, just to kind of get it, and then also the unit fraction. So we're combining those 2 for this week, or one of them this week, and then going into next week.
because one of our vocabulary words that we're gonna address this week is unit fractions, and we thought we would just roll into that, continue with that, and then the following week do the number lines. She has next week's going into the number lines. So we were just thinking, and we've got it up there, that might make sense to combine those two next week, finish up, because we had a short week this week, and then go into unit fractions, and then the following week we would do 3.3B, which is actually demonstrating it on a number line.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? or-
Yeah, that makes sense. The main reason I think the only reason that they have it as a number line there is because you don't wanna just think of it as a separate entity, as like a number line, you wanna see the whole numbers on a number line, so you know when you're representing it as part of a whole.
Mhm.
That's why they have it next, because it kinda goes with what you're just doing with a part of a whole, whether it's a,
Okay.
you
So
see what I mean?
You think it would be better to just move it?
No, I mean, if you feel, I don't think it's really that big of a deal if you teach the unit fractions with 3.3A
Okay,
and then do 3.3B,
okay,
because if you think about it, you only have 4 days
right,
this week and then the next week. So you're planning on doing the number line on week 3?
right,
Yes.
that would be 3.3.
Yeah, so it'd just be right after what were the unit fraction. So going into,
Yeah, I mean, I don't
they're
think
all
it's,
related,
they're all, like, that's
so
what I'm
it's
saying,
just
they're all
splitting
related.
it up by,
The only thing is, like, when you're teaching, when you're mapping out the way you're presenting it, remember the big foundation is that piece of, it's part of a whole.
it's part of a whole.
And sometimes some kids can't see it when you give them like an object or a shape. Sometimes kids see numbers linear, and if they're seeing it as this is a whole number, and they might grab it a little bit better. So just keep that in mind. Just because you're switching it doesn't mean that when you're teaching 3.3A and you have one kiddo that is still not understanding, or you can't really explain it to you that it's part of a whole, you can show him the number line, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then they might see it better that way. That doesn't mean that, you can't teach it that week, or, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, that you're going to get to the number line, but if you need it while you're teaching 3.3A, you could always introduce it. You know, I mean, cause they're separate teaks, cause they want you to, but they all go hand in hand like you're saying, so I think you're fine switching those
Okay.
around.
And we kind of want to work with everybody on kind of tweaking those, we just kind of put those in, I can identify and create fractions between 0 and 1, because, sometimes I forget because I was in 4th grade, that we're not going past 1, it's just between 0 and 1. By creating and adding unit fractions with paint strips,
Or just more than
Or-
a whole, cause we are, I mean, you
or
can
pizza
see it in any
pieces.
whole.
In circles, cut up pizza shapes and stuff like that, so maybe we need to say with graphic organizers instead of being specific paint strips, because we might be breaking it up with like a pizza where they add the pieces of the pizza up. So we're trying,
Can we say models instead of paint strips?
There we go.
models, yes,
Yes,
yes.
because the teak encompasses all of those models,
Right.
cause
Oh,
it's
okay.
really.
Yeah.
You do it. I forgot.
No, you're already in there.
Okay,
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
There you go.
okay, and we're kind of gonna, we also, probably later in the week, because we also want them to identify them too. We're gonna create those, and we're gonna want to identify the parts of the unit fraction, so, and I'm kind of redundant in there, I said, each part of a whole, but like what I was telling them today, there has to be a number to recognize, like somebody had a birthday today, and it was perfect, cause they were exactly 9 years old. But everybody was a little more than 8, but not yet 9. So we're trying to get that concept that it's those numbers that you don't know what to call them because they're kind of fuzzy, they're kind of in between, and so recognize that each part of a whole is one unit fraction of an object. I just put that in there, it's kind of redundant, but we're gonna wanna label those parts too, which
We were trying to do, because we have 2 teaks, so whether it was, having a learning objective for both, that's what we were trying to, whether we do that, or 2 separate ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Can
I would keep it separate, only
Okay.
because it's, I would keep it, I would just keep it separate, because like when you're doing when you, like say tomorrow, you might focus just on this part, and then once you introduce it as one objective, and then the next day you do the other objective, and then like maybe Friday or Thursday, you can have both of them up there, because they both have seen them separately, separately, and but I mean, I think you're fine with leaving it separate.
Can we say that I can recognize that fractions are part of a whole, and then by blah blah blah, because
right, it
it's
is.
confusing.
Yeah, it was, we left it so that way we can
I
tweak
can
it.
recognize that fractions are part of a whole by,
Is that what you were saying?
yeah, but you deleted the by part, what did it say by what? by, and how do I, okay, by adding parts and labeling them on a graphic.
So, what I wanna make sure, because a unit fraction is one, it's just one
Period.
quantity,
I know.
so it's one over something, it's one over the denominator. So, when we're doing these graphic organizers, it's gonna be 1/5, well, we're not doing fiscal, 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. It's never gonna be 2/3 plus 1/3 in third grade, or 4/3.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we compare them that way, but are we gonna add them that way?
I don't think she was saying yeah to you.
Yeah, I wasn't, sorry.
No, I wanted to make sure, because it says we're adding unit fractions, and that's only one over the denominator, so it's not like 2/8 plus 1/8 plus 3/8, I mean, we're not gonna add them up that way, right?
It's just one.
It's just
I
one.
don't, I mean, we can pull the star up real quick and
It's
look at
just
how
one.
it's done.
Okay.
Because I remember, actually,
Okay, just one.
Do we wanna look at it?
It was just one.
Yeah, pull it up real quick.
Just because when we do the paint strips, we could do it in different ways, we could do 2/8 plus 1/8 plus 3/8, you know, or we can just do 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8, you know, all the way up to equals 8/8.
I don't think it'd be bad showing them either way.
Both ways.
There you go.
And I can find the one that equals
Or
to.
the star.
Yeah.
So put the equal, what other fractions would equal?
Okay, so figuring
Keep
out the
going,
shaded
it's
part, and
not
then
that
I
one.
think,
Downstairs? Oh, no, I haven't already.
They're comparing.
Just create the whole, adding the parts and labeling them, period.
Just, yeah, maybe labeling them.
I would get, yeah, done.
Okay.
Okay, this is representing on a number line.
See, and it's between 1 and 0, I mean, it's, yeah,
Zero
it's
and
between
one.
0 and
So
1.
this one? That one. No, it's not.
Okay.
Sandra just added it.
That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Present and solve addition and subtraction fractions with equal denominators using objects and.
This isn't adding though, this is comparing a third to a fourth.
Right, now when we
Yeah.
compare, we're gonna have different numerators.
Yeah.
But I think when we're adding, it's just one.
It has to be the same.
It's just one denominator.
Yeah.
One
It's
denominator,
not
right?
unit, it's gotta be
Right.
unit.
Okay.
We're gonna just start adding like the same.
so there's a fraction.
So
Yeah,
that
but
is
I-
the
I
same
just-
denominator.
So
Same
this
I'm
is-
equivalent.
I'm just thinking in my head, I'm thinking, I'm trying to read to that part, but I'm thinking out loud, and I'm just gonna say what I'm thinking. That is a supporting standard.
Mhm.
So when you remember, you're thinking of, it's gonna support something bigger than that, whether it be in third grade or fourth grade.
Right,
Because once they identify that unit and understand how to put two units together and having that as a unit, that's gonna lead them to do, like if they're doing 1/8 plus 1/8, it's gonna lead them to go 3/8 plus 1/8. So that's what it's supporting, so I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, even if it doesn't show it here, like, for example, that one's not one of them.
I left
I
it
don't-
here because
I don't think-
it looks like a tricky question. I thought it would be
Yeah,
good for
and
you
I don't
to
think
see.
it's good, they're gonna only use unit fractions if they're adding them together, like they could have a pictorial and they could have
okay.
2/8
a
here,
pictorial, it's
and then there's
different.
another one that's gonna have 1/8.
What's the
But
other
if they
option?
understand how to connect it
Mhm.
to that, cause I mean, that's the whole reason to have a supporting versus a readiness.
Mhm.
So you're supporting, you're building that foundation of adding and looking at it as a unit, but that doesn't mean that they can't add another fraction. They're just not gonna add it all the way like in
most of
mixed numbers or, you know,
And most of
or
the
improper
times,
fractions.
Because
most
on
of the
this
times
test,
in
there aren't
class,
any
they
questions.
use
with
the
it.
model, when they're
Yes.
gonna use those improper fractions, they use the model.
Right, and they do,
Yeah, and they
That's
won't
what
do
I've seen.
improper in.
It's not even
no,
improper.
But that's what I'm saying, like, obviously that's not part of that, that teak is really adding.
Comparing, sorry.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
That question, the previous
that
one
one
with
that
the
you had, the
granola
computer
bars,
one?
what throws off the kids
You
is
had
they're
one right there.
expecting fractions to be
It was
part
one.
of a whole,
well, that,
not part of a group.
It's
But it could be part
comparison.
of
set.
And we're gonna-
Of a set, we need to really make
Look at
sure
that
they
one right
understand
there.
and
that.
that's one of the things
You
some of them
have the same denominator.
And that's part of
Part
like
of
the
it,
definitions and all that going through,
And it's
like the
only
graphic
that
or
numerator.
anchor chart.
But then the
and
group
stuff.
becomes a whole group, or a
Yes,
whole set.
Because it's the
So
same
even
unit,
doing,
they're
like,
using the
grades
same
and
unit.
stuff, showing
Right.
red
Yeah,
things
they're
and
just
green
comparing
things,
them,
that
though.
they're
Exactly.
part of that set.
That's the way how they do.
The other thing we wanted to ask, when she sent that back to us, she has 3.41, and we didn't have time to look it up on STAR, and 3.7A,
That's 3.4i.
oh, I, and they're not on the IFD. So we need to see what that is that we're supposed to be teaching, because it's not on here, and why did she?
So we need
I
to-
circled it for some reason, I had 3.7A, I circled it.
3.7A and then 3.4I, I guess.
Well,
What are they?
Just, we'll get to, let me look
We
for
just
them
wanna make
here.
sure we have
Yeah,
time to
look,
fit
we don't
them
need them for
in.
next week, but if you can find out and then just let us know.
Yeah.
Misty, what was her name?
Misty Young,
Yeah, 3.4I and 3.7A. She has them as
Yeah, I can see
supporting.
in 3.7A, she has it for the first week. That's why I was circled it too. Did you see how she has it for
Yeah, and
January
we-
1st?
and so it's not in her
Here,
IFD.
If this would load up, that goes okay, 3.4I, it is determine if a number is even or odd using divisibility rules. So it's still part of 3.4, your number and operations, the student applies mathematical process standards to develop and use strategies and methods for whole number computations in order to solve problems with efficiency and accuracy. The student is expected to determine if a number is even or odd using divisibility
We
rules.
just did that for Christmas.
I don't understand why it's in fractions though.
Like,
Spiral?
no, like if you're looking, here, let me see if I can find out.
I definitely get like for division
me,
and
it's-
things like
To
that.
me, this whole teak is really about, when you're dividing something, you see patterns, when you're decomposing and composing, you see halves, like when you're looking at numbers and you're doing the, what do you call them, equal numbers and you're putting them,
Equivalent
doubles,
from-
when you're doing doubles, like if you have a half and another half, so like if you're looking at a fraction, and you see, like, you have, like, even if it's a pictorial, they'll have 3/6. They might not have it, and they might not look exactly like the half, but they have to understand that 6 divided by 3 is a half, it's still, you see what I mean? So that's why they have that teak in the fractions,
Gotcha.
because you're gonna have problems that are going to show you, and then they started that off, I can't even talk today for some reason, they started that off in second grade, where they're going to have like a pictorial, and it'll have like a fourth, 2/4 highlighted, and then they'll have an eighth, pies broken up into eighths, and then they'll have 4 colored, and they'll ask you, what, are they the same, they're the same, or they're not the same, or they're, they do it all in word, but if they understand that 8 divided by 4 is half, and, 4 divided by 2 is half, so that's why that divisibility
Okay.
part goes in there.
So we're, okay.
So I don't think you have to like do an objective by itself to do that, but when you're talking about, when you get to that, when you get to, like, say for example, 3.3, B and A, like A, B, and C, those first part of the weeks, you're gonna be comparing them, right? You're gonna be comparing them, so that's, when that teak goes in that area, because in order to compare, you have to know that the division, you have to have that numeracy background.
Okay.
That's
That's
it,
an A. And then what's what is that 3.7A that you were just,
3.7, no, that's 3.4I.
and then with 3.7A,
3.7A, yeah, A circle, that I didn't write anything down, I'm sorry. Oh, here it is, okay. So that's represent fractions of halves, fourths, and eighths as distances from 0 on a number line.
So
So it's
number
basically
line.
the number line. So when you're going over, 3.3B, you wanna look at those benchmarks,
okay.
cause that's really what it
Is it
is,
under
and
eduforia?
your benchmarks are easy, cause they're in third grade,
Well,
you don't have to know all
go
the others. so.
each one,
Okay,
like for example.
we'll put that in there.
3.7.
Okay, thank you. We just wanted to clarify
No,
that, to
yeah,
make sure we
absolutely.
covered them, because they didn't have them in here.
Yeah, because, that, the one that we just went over, 3.4I, also like when you're on that number line, which is the 3.7A, you're gonna have a number from 0 to 1, and then if you divide that 0 to 1 into eighths, then right in the half is going to be 4 eighths. So and that's
So you
really,
need an
really
eight
important,
quotient.
because if they really truly understand numbers and then they get that piece, that's gonna be so much easier for them to do equivalent fractions and all the stuff they're going to do in 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah.
So
I'm just gonna put Q3DA.
And
that's why they have it there.
in our sneak peek, remember, she made a point of showing of fractions on a number line and then taking,
So
she
what was-
boxed in the number line to turn it into a rectangle
Mhm.
for them
There you
to
go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things that you wanna remember, like, because you guys are only doing a whole, that's a great idea, but I would get them in a habit of circling the whole number, and having them verbalize it and say, hey, what do you see on this number line? What are you observing when you see, well, I know it's a whole, how do you know? And then you can box it in, but circle the zeros or circle the 1, and then have them, make sure that they understand that's a whole. So when they're doing that fraction, don't just say, what fraction is it, or they see a picture, they'll say, oh, that's 1/4. Hey, what does that mean? That's 1/4 of what? That's 1/4 of the whole circle, that's 1/4 of the whole rectangle. It's 1/4 of the whole set or class, or, just have them, because even though it's so simple to have them say it, if you just keep repeating and say, well, how did you know that? What part of what? What is it, a part of a monkey? What is it? Like, and having them use that is really a whole. So it's really connects with them.
Okay.
Senior moment,
Yeah, with time.
Now, yeah, I know it's time.
No,
No,
it goes with time too.
like,
Oh, I
the whole
know,
hour.
yes, with a
Yeah.
clock.
And that's all
We're gonna
about
do that.
divisibility
February
too,
21,
because you have a clock is a
mile.
circle,
So yeah, today one of the kids said
half
it's like
30.
division. I was
Yeah.
like, just when you're doing iStation, iStation has elapsed time on there, and I meant to show
Yeah.
them.
Right.
So get
It's a
them
big window.
the habit now of looking at that and how much time they were on there, because that'll be coming out elapsed time, not yet, but like in March or whatever. So then they'll be kinda like, I already know what it means. I was trying to think of a field trip to Superfoods with fractions, but I really can't, because we can't go, okay, give me a half a pound of cheese, cheddar cheese. I mean, unless you guys come up with any other ideas. I mean, I can approach him again. I'm gonna make a poster and we're all gonna sign it. I'm gonna take it to him on things, so if you can kinda think of any other kind of a field trip that I could incorporate where, that one's a little harder, cause everybody buys meat and cheese, but, I mean, we really can't physically buy it, so I don't know how else we could do that on a field trip.
Cooking, I just think about cooking.
I know, I wish we had a whole new lab.
I learned about fractions so much just with cooking.
But just
I have
I think we made
magazines.
cabbage soup last year, and the kids measured stuff out.
Let's just see if we can find some recipes that are just like dumb recipes that aren't really,
Yeah.
cause, we have all those measuring cups in there, and maybe we can make a
I mean,
recipe.
you could even do like one of the things that I remember as a kid doing stuff with the measuring cups, and then like we didn't have like all of them, we only had like a whole cup.
What was
and
it, February
we had to kind
22nd?
of figure out where the half is, where the fourth is, and it's like if the recipe called for a fourth, how would I use this? And I mean, even if you had like one of those throwaway measuring cups, and have them mark it with an expo, like where would a half be, where would a quarter be? Just so they can have that concept of you're dividing this whole thing into a half, into a fourth, into eighths. So you can do something like that.
Yeah,
We use that with water and but
use colored water, but it all mix.
Or I
Well, you know what I
lost my
thought about
measuring cup.
sand, you know how they have those colored sand things, but we have to buy all that.
I'm gonna put our
They put them in those little
DA
bottles
dates. They're
and
not till February.
they're like pink and red and blue, and they're really cool. And that would be a really good way to see it, but we'd have to buy all those colored sands, and they're gonna buy all that sand for
Yeah,
us.
I have to run.
the water, you can color it.
Go ahead.
But it'll mix,
You know,
though,
it'll
won't
be
it? Where the sand, that, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I already
we
thought
do
of that. Like oil and, we could do oil and water.
So sand
But if
color
we-
is pretty cool,
I realized it was-
I know, but
Or
we have
even
to
rice.
We need to
Rice
decide
and
though.
rice and then sand, and then what else? Rice, sand, and pebbles, beans, yeah, okay. We'll work on
I mean,
it.
cause you could dye rice easily too.
Yeah,
Like you could have like a cup of rice, like a whole bag of rice, just dye it, and then just have them in buckets and then have them fill.
and it's not expensive, see like the rice, the beans.
Right, but you gave us at least a start question.
We'll work on that. That'll be a project where we might have you guys come in and help us, because it's gonna be
Exactly.
a lot. We'll be calling you.
My strategy is on a clipboard.
Okay,
Stays on the clipboard.
all right,
That's
we're
what
gonna
we
go.
need to.
You gotta run.
Mr. Mercado?
Guys, tomorrow we're gonna pick out and decide what days we're gonna give our assessments, so that's our window.